This is the second lesson in the Middle Ages unit, so make sure that you watch the first one first before taking notes on this one. This lesson is going to cover the Crusades. And the Crusades were a series of military expeditions in which Europeans tried to gain control of the Holy Land of Jerusalem from the Muslims. They began in the 11th century when the Byzantine Empire and Constantinople asked Christian states in Europe to help fight against the Muslim Turks, and this lasted almost 200 years. So this is a constructive response question. I'm going to have you answer this at the end of the lesson, so make sure that you're looking out for what the answer could be. I'll have it paused in the Ed puzzle. Okay, so the Crusades. So I'm sure you're wondering, what exactly are the Crusades? It was a holy war that was waged involving thousands of Europeans to reclaim the Holy Land of Jerusalem in the name of Christianity. And in all, there were about 8 or 9 crusades, depending on which source you're using. So in the summer of 1096, 12,000 French peasants, along with 2 armies from Germany, marched through Europe in the People's Crusade. And they lost a third of their people before they even reached Constantinople. And these were untrained, in rags, with no money. They wandered around attacking and stealing from villages. The emperor gave them supplies and ships and sent them to go fight the Turks in Asia Minor. In 1097, the great lords led armies of mostly French warriors, along with vassals, wives, cooks, children, clerks, in the Nobles' Crusade. So these are knights that fought for religion, but also sought adventure. They welcomed a chance to fight and the possibility to gain wealth or a fancy title. Many of the poor people saw this, or saw the military, as a way to rise in social class. Okay, so when were the Crusades? They started in 1093 and they lasted almost 300 years, a little over 200. Okay, so the French warriors reached and took Jerusalem in 1099 in a deadly massacre of the city's Muslim, Christian, and Jewish inhabitants all alike. Most of the Crusaders returned to Europe, but some stayed and organized 4 Crusader states. Italian port cities like Genoa, Pisa, and Venice saw this as an opportunity to begin trading with the Crusader states. Growing rich and powerful in the process, the Muslims began to strike back, but the Crusaders fought them once more. So why a crusade? So this had for social reasons. They had the opportunity to get knights to stop fighting each other and fight a new foe instead of causing chaos where they were. These knights threatened peace in Europe, so it was kind of like, here, go do something else somewhere else. The economic aspect of it, the Holy Lands of Jerusalem were generally wealthier than Europe, and many wanted to get their share of that wealth. So that's another reason why they started the Crusades. Right. So, the younger sons who did not stand to inherit their father's property were also looking for their own wealth and adventure. So, this gave second sons, third sons, and so on another reason to go fight, because they were managing to get their own wealth instead of having to get the scraps that they were left behind from their father's property. And merchants supplied loans to finance the journey, which made money back once they got it. So the political reason, it was a chance for the Pope to gain territory instead of a Byzantine rival. And the spiritual reason behind it was to fight or die on the Crusades' ticket to heaven. This was a Christian contradiction that was set up by the Pope, and I'll explain that in a second. So, Pope Urban II. So, at the Council of Clermont in 1095, Pope Urban II called for Christians to help free Jerusalem. He declared that those who died in holy war would be immediately absolved or freed from blame or guilt of their sins. And people were convinced that fighting this war was the will of God, and that the Pope hoped the Crusades would stop Christians from fighting amongst themselves, and the Turks posed a particular threat to the Christian religion. They had risen to power in Jerusalem and attacked European Christians, making pilgrimages into the city. The Pope also wanted the power for himself and the church. Nice guy. So, what happened? In the First Crusade, I talked about Pope Urban II called for the Holy War against the Muslims controlling the Holy Lands. Pope Urban's call brought tremendous support from the Crusade, for the Crusade, and those who died in the Crusade were assured a ticket to heaven. So they said that God willed it, and they would yell that when they were crying in battle. This was a 3,000-mile journey from Europe to Jerusalem. Mind you, it was on foot with carriages and horses, so it took forever. And eventually, 12,000 people approached Jerusalem and besieged it for a month. On July 15th, 1099, Christians captured the city. And in the process, Christians also slaughtered all the Muslims left in the city. And this is the route that was taken during the Crusades, the 3,000 miles. So now on to the Second Crusade. All right, so the Muslim army under the command of Saladin captured Jerusalem again in 1187. So the Christian crusade to defeat Saladin and recapture the city came about. So this was the Second Crusade wasn't as successful as the first. King Louis of France and the Emperor Conrad of Germany failed in their fight against the Muslims in 1140, and in the Third Crusade in 1187 was fought against the Muslims. Sultan Saladin, who regained control of Jerusalem, and it was led by German Emperor Frederick Barbarossa and the English King Richard I. He was also known as Richard the Lionheart, and French King Philip II, or Philip Augustus. The conquered was doomed. Frederick drowned early in the fight, and the French and English who had arrived by sea struggled to make it inland. Philip headed back home to France, leaving King Richard I to negotiate a settlement with Saladin, and the agreement allowed Christian pilgrims access to Jerusalem once again. There's a portrait and a picture from one of the movies of Saladin. Here's from the Second Crusade. Here's just a movie, Kingdom of Heaven. It was about the Crusades. I don't really recommend you guys watch it unless you're into really gory stuff, because there's a whole lot of that going on in there. And like I said, the Third Crusade was led by powerful monarchs that didn't really do what they wanted to do. Also, King Richard the First was known as one of the greatest English kings of the Middle Ages, while his younger brother John is considered one of the worst. Richard's courage in the battle earned him the nickname Richard the Lionhearted, according to English legend, and he and Robin Hood live in the same time. If you watch the cartoon version of Disney, they talk about King Richard, and they have King John as the tiger or lion or whatever he is, and he's like constantly crying and sucking on his thumb. That's where they got the idea, or they based it off of these real people. Oh, sorry. All right, so in the Third Crusade, like I said, the English King Richard the Lionhearted fought many battles against Saladin, and they agreed to a truce in 1192. Jerusalem stayed under Muslim control, and Saladin promised unharmed Christians they could freely visit the city's holy places. All right, so after 6 years after Saladin's death, Pope Innocent III called for another crusade. The Fourth Crusade, the army sacked Constantinople in 1204, and this increased the division between the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Roman Catholic Church. Okay, this one was also unsuccessful in the 1200s. There was also four more crusades that were also unsuccessful, one of which was called the Children's Crusade. Okay, so these are some effects of the Crusades. The Crusades helped Italian port cities prosper and increased the trade with the East. Rugs, jewelry, glass, and spices became big commodities. And the Crusades also brought new ideas to Western Europe and the Middle Ages. Advances made by Arab dynasties in mathematics and technology and medicine boosted European knowledge in these areas, and Europeans learned to make better maps and ships. The Crusades helped break down feudalism, and many vassals sold their land to pay the rising war taxes and freed their serfs to fight in the Crusades. This allowed kings to claim the land of the nobles and form stronger central governments. Kings gained new wealth and through trade with the East, and it helped them to develop nation states. Unfortunately, the Crusades caused the death of untold numbers of over the centuries of warfare, and it bred religious intolerance, including attacks on the Jews, and the split between Eastern and Western Christianity became permanent. Okay, this is the. Oh, wait, one more. Sorry, I keep doing that. All right, so like I said, the Crusades were a violation of "Thou shalt not kill," which is one of the commandments. It was also an example of the abuse of church power at the time. The effects of the Crusades are still in effect in that region of the world today. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pause this on Edpuzzle so you can go ahead and answer the question and submit your response. If you have any questions, please write them down on your notes and let me know so that I can address them in class.